Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Hour of Love. I'm Charboil and this is...
El Bandito.
Hey El Bandito, how you doing tonight?
Oh man, I am doing great tonight, senor. I am super psyched. I am super pumped for what we have for you guys tonight. We have a super exciting episode, all based around the amazing lead up to Infinity War. Probably the end-all, be-all, awesomest movies of ever coming out ever.
Well, definitely, man. You know, it's been 10 years in the making, since one movie kind of kicked it off, man. And you got that post-credit scene where, talked about the Avengers coming. And It was like, oh, man, what's going to happen then? Lo and behold, a few years after that, we get the post-credit scene and, Avengers with Thanos. And we've been waiting for that for now, what 6 years now? So, I mean,
heck yeah,
it's
man.
definitely, like you said, I think it's been worth the wait. But, we mentioned that, one movie kicked it off, man. And who was that about?
None other than the Invincible Iron Man, dude. 2008, it's the 10-year anniversary of the film, so it's pretty awesome. May 2nd was the day it was released in 2008 here in the United States, so it was pretty awesome. It was a pretty exciting day. It really revolutionized kind of superhero movies. I mean, they had been getting better. They'd been doing really good. The Incredible Hulk was just around the corner after it to come out and kind of replace the not-so-great Hulk. But it's just funny that, a few weeks ago, last month, we started to do the Infinity War countdown where we wanted to highlight one of the 6 Avengers in each month leading up to Infinity War's release. And we started it off last month with the first Avenger, Captain America.
Oh, yeah.
I'll put a link or something to it if you haven't caught that. But we got so much love off of that one segment because we only dedicated like 20 minutes to doing it, the history of Cap and stuff like that. And we got so many comments and so many people just liking that segment that we decided to go ahead and do tonight's entire episode and the rest of the Infinity War Countdown episodes solely based on the Avenger of our choice. And tonight, last time we did the first Avenger, tonight we're doing the first of the Avengers who really kind of had their own Marvel Studios movie. So yeah, we're dedicating tonight to Iron Man.
Oh, you know it, man. And we know a lot of people are fans of these movies and stuff, man. You guys can throw down some comments. Who's your favorite Avenger? If you love Tony Stark, Iron Man, throw up some love down there, man. Definitely, we love to interact with you guys, and we're going to have a really good show and lots of good information, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So also, if you know some friends who dig Iron Man and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, be sure to share it, man, because the more people we get into here partying, the better.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, throw out a share or something, let some people know what's going down, because tonight what we've got in store for you is we've got 3 segments dedicated to Iron Man. First off, we're going to start off by giving you guys a history of the kind of comic book Iron Man, where the concept came from, the idea, who the creators are, everything like that. So we're going to have a brief little segment on that. Then we're going to jump into some of the all-time best storylines over the, 50 years now Iron Man's been around. So we're going to take an in-depth look at some of his popular stories. And then we're going to wrap it up by doing what really inspired our Infinity War countdown. We're going to do our rating.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So we're going to go through and we're going to judge and rate different aspects of it. We're going to need the audience to chip in and give us their vote and their opinion as well. And we're also going to break down his presence in the MCU, where he's at, how that affects the overall story arcs, and where we think it's going to go from there as far as into Infinity War and beyond.
Absolutely, man. Like we said, it started off in 2008. I still remember going to see, the first Iron Man. After you seeing the trailers and stuff, you're right, man. It kind of started to kind of dry up a little bit where, the Spider-Man movies were kind of finishing up, and like I said, that Hulk movie wasn't all that great. The Ang Lee one.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, oh man, what can they do, man? Is this going to really bring it to the next level? And I got to say, I remember when I left that theater, I was like, that was killer.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, Jon Favreau, Robert Downey Jr., they just immensely awesome movie. Like I said, we've got some highlights about it. We're going to talk all about that in the final segment of the show today. So that'll be in about 30 minutes or so from now.
Absolutely.
But for right now, why don't we just dive right into it and we start talking about the history of Iron Man, where he came from, where he started off in the comics. What do you think about that, Senor Bull?
Let's do it.
All right, let's check it out, guys. Wah. Let's bring the screen on in.
Do you guys like our version of Jarvis here? That's You know, that's Charvis.
We're working on whether or not I can actually talk to him. So far, I cannot, but we're getting there.
All right, man.
Sorry,
So
let's fire it up here, and let's see what our first slide is for tonight. Tales of Suspense, number 39. This is the comic that started it all. You got it, man.
Sorry, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, where it all began. You know, this is, you know, I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be surprised to know that it wasn't Iron Man number 1. You know, like, Tales of Suspense here. Yeah,
pretty much all the old-time comics, like, started off in these anthology books, you know. Your Spider-Mans were an Amazing Fantasy and stuff like that. Only a few characters like Captain America were given their own book right off the bat. I think the only other real notable example is the Fantastic Four. Like, they came out in Fantastic Four, so that's pretty epic. But Iron Man actually rose to popularity out of an anthology book, which is very difficult to do. But when you do that, it means you're something special, and that's exactly what Iron Man was. Now, Stan Lee actually didn't create Captain America, and he's the only Avenger out of the ones were out of the original 6 here from the Avengers 2012 movie. But he absolutely created Iron Man. Right?
Yep.
But the official listing is that 4 people are actually the co-creators of Iron Man. So let's take a look at those 4 gentlemen right now.
Well, that definitely surprises me, man, because, I would have always just pegged, Stan Lee as that creator. But like we said, there's always a lot of great minds that go into these awesome characters.
Absolutely. It kind of goes back to that mantra Nick Fury throws around where you can really do something great when you realize that you're part of something bigger.
You know it, man.
So Stan Lee and Larry Lieber both worked on the story. Stan Lee kind of came up with the concept, the idea, and the plot, and then Larry Lieber went ahead and fleshed out the whole story. He penned the actual script for the first issue. Now, it seems like kind of a coincidence, Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, that they kind of both have sort of the same name. Well, Stan Lee's real name is Lieber, and this is his younger brother Larry, who he hired to come in and do a lot of the script fleshing out for him while he was working on so many books after all the success they had in '62.
That's pretty awesome, man. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, I know, like, we've tried to sit down and, like, create a comic before and stuff, and that's what you do. You go to, like, your friends and your family, and you're like, hey, I got this awesome idea, and you kind of collaborate a little bit. So this is cool that him and his brother, share this creation.
Absolutely. Hey, Party Man Will, if you're out there watching, bro, I see you in the comments. Do me a favor, tag Kelly Jade and see if she'll join it, because I know she really wanted to see this. I don't see her in here. She's probably off noodling around, eating dinner or something, and forgot. So shoot her down there in the tags, man. That'd be awesome.
And definitely real quick, shout out to James P., Jason L., man. We see you guys. Rich G., Justin K., man. You guys, thanks for joining us. Be sure to keep throwing down some awesome comments and let us know what you think of the show tonight.
Absolutely. All right, so the other 2 gentlemen involved, of course, living legend, well, not living, that's a bad way of putting it, but the legendary Jack Kirby, right?
The hardest worker
Yeah,
ever.
I mean, again, another photo of him just working over here on the thing. And with him there is Don Heck, which is actually the guy's real name. Pretty cool name there. But Jack Kirby did the initial cover for the book, which it was kind of common practice back in the day that the cover would get done first, especially in an anthology book, and then the story and all would be fleshed out kind of from the zingy, amazing cover. And Jack Kirby, of course, doing the cover of the book, designed his original Iron Man's original battle suit there, his original Iron Man armor. So that's really what gives Jack Kirby kind of that shoe in. Is like, yeah, I definitely helped create the guy. I came up with the freaking armor,
There you go. It wouldn't be Iron Man without the iron, right?
Yeah. Without the suit, man. So, but Don Heck was the actual artist who worked on the rest of the book, and he went on to create the characters look in the books from Tony Stark himself, Pepper Potts, Happy Hogan, all the supporting characters and stuff that came about in those first few issues were all Don Heck.
Cool, man. Well, it's neat to know that, like you said, everyone, I mean, Stan Lee gets a lot of the praise, man, but there's a lot of, like we said, a lot of cats behind, Stan the man that helped out here.
Absolutely. But, you may be asking, well, what was the initial kind of push to the book? Like what really started it all off? I'm going to go to my next slide. Let's see what it is. Okay, it's billionaire playboy Tony Stark, right? So this is a good slide to chunk this out on you. So Stan Lee himself, in plenty of interviews, has said that at the time he was really feeling confident, almost in that edge of being cocky, where he's like, I had done a couple of great books, with the Hulk, Fantastic Four, all this stuff, Spider-Man, a couple of great books had come out, and he felt like he could make a character based on anything, and he could make people love it. So he took it kind of as a dare to himself to take something that at the time people weren't loving, right? So he's like, what if we got an arms dealer who's part of the military-industrial complex, who's a billionaire playboy, he's kind of a snob, he's kind of a schmuck, I wonder if I can write a character like that and shove it down America's throat and make them love it. And that's literally what he said. I'm going to shove it down their throats and they're going to love it. And oddly enough, he came up with the story of Tony Stark and Iron Man. And I say for the most part, yeah, we're like, ooh, yes, num, num, num.
Absolutely, man. It's like, it's funny. I remember when I was a kid, like reading all the various X-Men and stuff like that. I remember I came across an Iron Man comic, and just his like yellow and red costume, I was just kind of like, I just thought he was a robot. Like, I didn't think he was like a guy in there until later when I actually read it, and I was like, okay, it's actually a dude in a suit. That's pretty cool.
And when you get to the actual origin story, what's cool about it is it's so much exactly the same way that the movie kind of takes place, with a few small differences here and there. I mean, obviously, here he is, billionaire playboy and everything, so that's very much the same. Then you move on to look at different aspects of it, like he's a genius, he makes weapons, all this stuff. That's very much like they portrayed it exactly like in the movie. And also, he's in Vietnam instead of kind of the Gulf War, Afghanistan stuff we see later. Because in the books later, they kind of retconned it to the Persian Gulf War. And then in the film, obviously, they're in Afghanistan, right? But here we see he's actually in Vietnam, and he steps on a booby trap that's a landmine that his company made. And that's what explodes and sends the shrapnel into his heart. Very similar, of course, to how in the film, it's his weapons that are being used against him in that rocket attack.
Oh, yeah.
And he even sees the shell hit the ground. You can see the Stark Industries right on it.
Oh, man.
So from there, he ends up in a cave with Yinsen, who they show in the film as well. And he's injured. Yinsen helps him build this suit of armor. He's captured by the Viet Cong, who are all like, oh, yeah, we want you to build us super weapons. So he's like, yeah, I'll build you the bestest thing you ever seen. And he ends up building the Iron Man suit to kind of help him stay alive, but also help him escape, help him and Yinsen. In both instances, Yinsen ends up unfortunately dying in the conflict to escape. But he did everything he could, and he's a good dude. And there's definitely a moment at the end of the original book where he's like, I hope you can rest easy knowing that I'm going to take what we created and do something good with it. So it's really cool, yeah. But from there, we've also got some other interesting quirks about this, where, like I said, he's in Vietnam. But also one of the most interesting things is that back in the day, you remember all Marvel superheroes, like, they kind of had to have that one fatal flaw, that one price that they paid for their abilities.
Oh, absolutely. Spider-Man with Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
So forth. The Thing being a big rocky monster.
Absolutely. The Hulk's always on the run. Bruce Banner's always on the run. They always have to kind of give up something. There's always a price for their power. And initially, Tony Stark's price was the fact that he was stuck in that suit of armor. He couldn't take it off or anything like that. And you can see he's like, I'll spend my life in this iron prison.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was stuck in there.
It's pretty intense, but also something that they were like, that's pretty intense, and they got away from it almost right away. So later on in the series, I mean, like the next issue and then on, he just wears the chest plate, but he has to wear a full chest plate. It's not just the ring of light like in the movie, which doesn't seem like that much of a hassle, but I definitely wouldn't want to have a ring of light in my chest. I'm sorry.
Sure.
But yeah, he has to wear a full chest plate, which seems very cumbersome. And then he's like, I can't go to the beach because I'm embarrassed. And I'll get rust and stuff. So some of the other kind of neat quirks about it. Oh, here's the chest plate. There, you can see it.
Oh, there you go.
Some of the other cool quirks about it is that they didn't have an arc reactor. That was a great innovation for the new film. That it was actually a power source that would always power the Iron Man suit.
Oh, okay.
But originally it was just sort of like a magnetic pacemaker thing that kept him alive. That meant that he actually had to power his suit. So there'd be a lot of scenes and a lot of stories that revolved around him being like, my suit's out of juice. Oh no, I got to go hook up to a car battery and zap myself some energy so I can keep this battle going.
So once again, like another kind of weakness to that he had to,
Yes.
find power sources. Okay,
Yes, that's
okay.
kind of what
Yeah.
took the place of the encased in metal suit thing, which they were like, this guy's going to stink and die in there. Like, you can't just sit in a metal suit your whole life. But also the big push in the original comics was that he was able to use transistors to micro-size his technology. Because you got to think at the time, they're still using tubes for a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And transistors was kind of like a big innovation for them. Nowadays, we see a lot of biotech, nanotechnology things that are very, very cutting edge. But just as a neat little side note, that was their cutting edge aspect that made Iron Man believable in those original comics, was that he was able to use transistors to actually make his suit do things that technology that small couldn't do.
Well, that's pretty cool. Over here, we got Party Man Will saying that panel on the left almost looks like it came out of a porno.
He's like, my body is ready.
I mean, Tony Stark does kind of look like a 70s porn star.
He does,
with his
yeah.
stash and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they've said several times that he's very much modeled off of Howard Hughes.
Okay.
Now Howard Hughes being the famous, multimillionaire, built the Spruce Goose, made films and things like that, and was kind of very eccentric and a little weird. He was a germaphobe, had a weird kind of thing. They accused him of being a communist and all this stuff. So kind of a lot of parallels between him and Tony Stark. And what's really interesting is that Howard Stark, who they portray in a lot of his movies, Tony's dad, is very much Howard Hughes. Like, I mean, to a T, he's Howard Hughes without kind of the germophobia weird stuff. But it's great that they kind of pay that homage back in the films.
Absolutely, man. No, it's very, very interesting where the character is developed from to what we know today.
All right, so I was able to get some really cool clips here, and you can probably read that this says, I will reward him handsomely, this guy that helped me, blah, 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 in this panel here, right? You may be wondering, man, who helps Iron Man? That seems like...
Yeah.
Well, what was he running into that he needed help?
The guy who owned the car for his battery?
It turns out Tony Stark was driving a race car, and he got crashed and got stuck behind the wheel.
Oh, okay.
And a good Samaritan runs out from the crowd and tries to help him. And Tony Stark is like, hey, man, just leave me. I'm fine. The whole car's going to explode in like a second, and I'm trapped under the steering wheel. And this beast of a guy just pulls the steering wheel back and is like, there you go. Now you ain't stuck no more. Come on. And he's like, but this gas is going to explode. And he's like, yeah. And he drags him out of there and saves him, right? This is Happy Hogan.
Oh, okay.
This is how he originally meets Happy in the comics. And it's only a few issues in.
Okay.
I think it's issue 45 of Tales of Suspense.
Wow.
So 6 issues later, Happy Hogan showed up. So, you see him. He's portrayed by Jon Favreau in the films. Here he is here. He's even in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes.
So we've seen Happy Hogan a lot, and it's really cool to know that he was with Iron Man almost from the beginning there.
Yeah.
And from that one encounter, Tony was like, I'm going to hire that dude, and he's going to be my chauffeur and like my personal bodyguard.
That's pretty cool, man. And same thing with the race car, like I remember in Iron Man 2, I'm like, why is Tony Stark like racing? Like, why is he doing that? But now that makes a lot more sense, because it was part of his initial, run. So
just
cool.
Kind of a thing he did, fancy guy racing fancy sports cars. So what's interesting about that issue 45, not only does it kick off Happy Hogan, but you may be asking, oh, well, where does Pepper Potts show up, right? Played by Gwyneth Paltrow in the films, super hot babe, kind of Tony's main love interest, man. Well, she's right there in issue number 45.
It's the same issue as Happy?
Same issue. Like,
wow.
He actually brings Happy back to the office and is like, introduces him to his secretary, who's Pepper Potts.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, this is Pepper. She's my secretary. And he's all like, oh, my God, you're so beautiful. It's like, I love you so much. And this is actually her reaction. She looks at him and she's like, oh, my God, you're so ugly. She's like, you look like Bela Lugosi. You look like a mutant, dude.
Did she say that to Happy?
Yeah, she says it right to his face. Like, it's in the dialogue box. And in the next panel, he's all like, oh, don't worry about my looks. I'm a good guy and stuff. And she's like, whatever, dude.
Wow. Well, the 60s were a rough time, guys. You were just, people told you how it was, like right out here.
Exactly.
No beating around the bush.
They just tell you like it is, man. That's all it is. But going on from there, what's really interesting is in the next few panels, you see Pepper's actually walking away, and she's like, oh, I could never fall for a guy like Happy, because one of these days, Mr. Stark is going to forget about all those models and bimbos that he hangs out with, and he'll realize what a great gal I am. So she was really written in to kind of be a long-term love interest for him right from the beginning. And again, 6 issues in, it's cool to see how much that legacy has persisted. You know, how much these original characters maintained through all the years of history.
You know, and I got to say, I mean, just looking at that panel right there, that's quite a bit of dialogue. You know, like I've read some like older like DC comic books, and it's like, you know, it's usually very like, you know, and it just goes to show how much feeling they were. And I'm not doing a comparison thing here. I'm just saying, like you said, the way that they were writing these characters as being a little more personable and complex in the sense of like, yeah, she has this long-term goal to get the attention of Tony Stark. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. The layers and depth of characters was always something that Stan Lee comments that him and his writing team was always trying to introduce more humanistic characteristics. Not everyone needed to be these altruistic, perfect people like Superman and Wonder Woman were. They needed more depth and complexity, and it's odd how, in a way, it almost seems like they're trying to overcompensate for that now and make them like bad, horrible people in a lot of DC movies.
Absolutely. Oh, it looks like we've been joined by Kelly Jade.
Hey, there she is. Lost track of the time. Thank you, Party Man Will. I'm sure you threw her a shout out for me.
Oh, and just if you guys didn't get enough of them last week, it looks like Mr. Fusion has entered the room.
All right. Well, you guys may be asking yourself, hey, in that one shot they showed of Tony and he's ripping his shirt off, his whole armor was gold. What's the story with that, man? Were they just cheap with red paint back then, or what was going on? Well, you may have seen in that very first issue, Tales of Suspense 39, he was drawn completely gray. Like Senior Bull said, he would look like a robot, you know? So Don Heck was like, dude, I don't like that. We got to jazz this dude up a bit. So in issue number 40, they went ahead and made him completely gold, you know? And they said that Tony just painted it gold. It wasn't like his armor was gold. They just painted it gold.
He's that rich. He's just like, oh,
yeah, I'm going to make it out of solid gold. Kiss my glorious golden ass. But... yeah, you know, again, in the films, they parallel that, where he says, he's like, yeah, this is kind of ugly. Let's jazz it up and paint it.
Sure.
You know, some hot rod red and gold, you know, but we're still missing the red. What happened to the red, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we got issue number 40 there. Goes on a little bit with him in this gold suit jumping around. Kind of makes for good covers, good contrast with the color.
Sure.
You know? But lo and behold, out comes the red and gold suit. With kind of the upgrade, you're kind of getting some of the shoulder elements, the two-tone helmet, all these extra little added bits and pieces, right? Now, this is Tales of Suspense number 48.
Okay.
So it didn't take him long to hit on what would essentially become like his costume. And this was actually a fill-in issue that Steve Ditko came to fill in the artwork because Don Heck was like on vacation or taking a break or something.
Okay.
So Steve Ditko, who you may recognize from this photo, probably not because he's a bit of a recluse, but you may recognize some of his other work, like The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I got to say one thing about Steve Ditko. I mean, as you could see, when he did a character, he got it right the first time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying his stuff was so iconic that it usually stayed what it was. I know Daredevil went through a couple color iterations and stuff like that, but that's Spider-Man. I mean, that's what he looks like today.
So with very minor changes here and there, you know. But definitely when his 2002 movie came out for Spider-Man, there was no need to change the costume. They hadn't changed it hardly at all in 60 years, aside from the Venom stuff. That was just a little while. It was always this red and blue that just looked hot, man. So, yeah, Steve Ditko really knew a lot about costume design, man, and I think he gave Hollywood a real shoe-in for making sure that what they were working with was going to be something pretty solid. So, from Steve Ditko's inspiration, kind of spawned what has become the most changed costume in comic book history, right? Because it's a piece of tech, right? It's a gadget. And you know how men are, man. Every time you get your hands on a gadget, you got to tweak it. You got to make it your own. You got to do a little something different. So that's certainly been the tone for all the years that they've done Iron Man, and there have been countless dozen iterations of his suit. Almost every single artist who works on the book kind of puts their own flair or spin on it. And I love the fact that, like we've said about so many other things in the history of Iron Man, that the films absolutely reflect that.
Oh, sure,
you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Every film has a different primary suit. A lot of movies have one or two different suits that they show. So it's really great to see the variety and to know that the style isn't as important as the character.
Yeah, you know, and it's neat because, like you said, it's tech, so it's always advancing. And doesn't he actually have like names for it? Isn't it like Mach
Yeah, they call them like Mark 1, Mark
yeah.
4, Mark 37, and stuff like that. Yeah, so that definitely comes along later in the actual comics where they start designating the different suits, different things. But originally they just called them after the artist who drew them.
Oh, there you go. Ditko 1.
Now, most recently, gearing up for Infinity War, they released the Infinity War Iron Man suit in its entirety in this model that they put in Disneyland Paris to promote the film. So people in Disneyland Paris were able to actually walk up and see this life-size replica of Tony's new armor that's going to be in Infinity War. And you can just kind of make out how his arc reactor is a little different now. It's going to be kind of triangle, but then it has these almost like little circle curvy pieces on the ends. It looks really cool. So.
No, absolutely. I mean, the way Iron Man ended, and then like what kind of happened in, or Iron Man 3, I should say, and then what happened in Civil War. I mean, you were just kind of like, all right, man, let's see what, because he kind of like he destroyed all those suits, and then it's like, all right, well then he has this new suit that's more advanced and all that. So yeah, I mean, I just can't wait to see what he has coming at us next.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm sure it'll be some pretty awesome new little innovations and new tech things. I like the way his weapons always seem to change through every movie too, but they don't spend a lot of time boring us with science fiction-y details of what every little thing on his suit does. But getting back to the comics, we're going to wrap up kind of your history lesson here. And we want to talk about the Invincible Iron Man, the titular comic itself. Now, it turned out that they were mega surprised after producing the first few issues of the comic that women were writing in, young girls and women were writing in the majority of the fan mail for the Iron Man character. And Stan Lee attributes it to the fact that, he was a handsome playboy. And Stan Lee's like, I was basically writing the character based on me. So he jokes about that. But he's like, yeah, so he is a rich billionaire guy who's going through these problems of being like, I'm afraid to reveal who I am. I feel bad about the way that I look in public. And he's like, these were all these kind of issues that he really felt led to women at the time seeing him as like, but he's a great guy on the inside. And if he'd only notice me, I could help him get over these minute flaws, and he would be like the perfect guy to have, So the success of the book reigned on that for about 5 years, all in tales of suspense. It actually ran till 1968 when Iron Man got this book, his own titular comic of his own. And this debuted in May of 1968. So again, kind of cool parallel how the film came out in May 2008.
Hey, look at that.
His book came out May 1968.
50 years after its initial creation.
Yeah, so it's really fun stuff. Really great parallels that everything draws throughout it. But the one thing that they noticed was that a lot of characters weren't really feeling his kind of flaw anymore. Because the character was, his life was still too good. He was a playboy and a millionaire, always had all these hot babes hanging around. He could drive race cars, go all over the world, do all this cool stuff. And he had this badass super suit. So they were kind of like, well, he didn't really, it didn't really matter that he had to wear the chest plate thing or whatever.
Sure.
In the original comics, here after a while, he would get to carrying the suit in a briefcase that like weighed a ton, and then he'd have to take it out and put on the rest of the suit to go fight. And then he'd have like battery backup things, but it really wasn't that big a deal. Sure. Like anyone reading the book, I mean, anyone seeing the movies, like, I would totally take an Iron Man suit right now, carve my heart out, that's fine. If you could have that, it'd be worth the trade. So they decided to kind of up the ante a little bit as the series went on, and they stepped into something that would end up being kind of one of the most prominent character arcs of any superhero that I can recall, period.
Let's hear it.
Drunk Iron Man.
Oh, yeah.
They gave him an alcoholism problem where he was an alcoholic and he'd get drunked up all the time. And interestingly enough, in Iron Man 118, right, his drinking has gotten so bad that here he is, like, his buddy here is showing him, hey, this is his pilot who, like how Happy's his chauffeur. Yeah. This guy's his pilot who flies his planes and stuff.
Okay.
Now he's come in and he's found Tony there passed out, and just there's this attack happening, and he's like, Tony, you got to do something. Get up, get the suit going and everything like that. And this guy's like, I can't wake him up. He is blacked out drunk. I've got to do something. So he says to himself, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put on that Iron Man suit.
All right. Okay. So I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, that's the first appearance of Jim Rhodes. Not this guy. This guy. Now, both actors, both Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle, portrayed Jim Rhodes, Colonel James Rhodes, in the different Iron Man films. But the original character, yes, showed up as a result of his drinking. So I thought it was such a great homage in Iron Man 2 to have Rhodey go downstairs and get the Iron Man suit and kind of take on Tony when he's being kind of that drunk idiot that we see in the movie. And in the films, it never quite gets to that level of him being blacked out drunk while the world's in danger.
Sure.
With the comic having much more time to explore different stuff, this is definitely something that was a pretty dark part of comic history.
And it's definitely followed him, through a lot of different storylines and stuff like that. I know later we're going to talk about some of the top, comics that we've kind of just gone throughout the years. But yeah, this whole element, this dark side to him has been, like you said, like a bigger flaw than the arc reactor. Or it's something that he really does have control over, but that sometimes just the pain and everything of being a superhero has him slip into this dark space. So
that wear and tear it takes on him as being a normal man in a suit. You're going to get beat down a little bit. It's going to hurt, So he kind of found his solace in that bottle sort of thing. But also, like you said, the psychological stuff, your friends and family constantly being in danger, things like that, But it was just interesting to me how prominent of a character Rhodey is. Yet here we see him for the first time, like I said, in Iron Man 1:18. That's 10 years after the book started.
Absolutely.
So this is 1979 that Jim Rhodes shows up. And if you're thinking like, well, dude, that's War Machine, like, of course he's going to pop up in the freaking movie in no time. Take a moment to recognize that, like, he dons Iron Man's actual suit and takes over the mantle of being Iron Man, right?
Oh, wow.
And it's not until 1992 that he gets his own suit and becomes War Machine.
Wow. So for the time being, though, in between there, Tony Stark was still Iron Man, right?
There was a few issues where Rhodey was Iron Man.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and no one knew the difference because at the time in comics, he still had a secret identity. One of the most kind of glaring things about the movie is that ending where he's like, I am Iron Man.
Yeah, he lets it out of the bag,
Yeah, but originally a lot of stories were revolved around Happy Hogan being his chauffeur / bodyguard, but Iron Man being a pseudo bodyguard that Tony Stark had just made up. And Happy was like, I hate that guy. He always shows up and does my job for me. And you're like, dude, that's Tony, but he doesn't know. So same thing. At this point, people still didn't know that Tony Stark was Iron Man. So it was easy for Jim Rhodes to kind of impersonate him or do his duty for him.
That's cool. I do see in the comments here, our listeners are choosing which other listener would be the best drunken Iron Man. So
yeah, make sure to throw that in the comments. I'm going to vote for Kelly Jade. I've seen her pound some away, and she still functions. I'm just like, that's pretty amazing.
That's awesome, man. But no, definitely a big, like you said, leading, from that story into the creation eventually, of War Machine. Definitely, it's a major plot point for him.
Yeah.
So very cool that they also put that in the movie.
Absolutely. And Iron Man 3 tipping its cap to the Iron Patriot was a 2013 storyline.
Yeah.
So again, jumping way ahead in the comics, but in the films, really condensing down all this history, but feeding us in a way that is fun and exciting and enjoyable, and it feels like something's new and fresh all the time. So they're really doing a great job of keeping the parallels from the original history of the comics. They're hitting all the milestones, the landmarks of what made the characters great to me.
Absolutely, man. Just good stuff. I think they've done a great, like you said, they're, when they make these films, we know Marvel's on a roll, so now they could probably slow down a little bit with the storytelling if they really wanted to, but at the same time, 5 Iron Man movies might not be the best plan. They want to try to, like you said, condense it down, streamline it, but not go off the beaten paths. And I think they've done a good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of times you see comic book movies kind of writing their own original story. A lot of the X-Men movies did that. They wrote a story that wasn't based on anything out of the comics. And those are usually the ones that are notoriously bad. But all the ones where they adapted a story from the books, really good. So it's not difficult to put 2 and 2 together there and realize like what worked in the comics is going to work on screen.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's classic for a reason, and like you can see now, X-Men are following suit with that. With Days of Future Past, Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Eventually, the Phoenix, hopefully done right this time.
Well, even X-Men 2 was heavily based off of
yes
a storyline in the comics, and that by far to me is like one of the best X-Men movies, if not the best one, even with all the others that came after.
Absolutely, man, and I agree. X2 was very cool. It looks like Mr. Fusion in here is trying to challenge that he thinks he would make the best drunken Iron Man. I think we should keep Mr. Fusion as far away from.
I think Mr. Fusion would be like the best Hulk because he just seems to break stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the battle or what's going on. He's just breaking random things.
He definitely left quite a mess here in the studio last week after. No,
all right, I think we're just about going to wrap up your history lesson. So that's kind of the history of Iron Man in comics. I hope any fans of the film or the character on film can see a lot of the parallels and maybe learned a little something fun and exciting about Iron Man himself. But to this day, Iron Man continues to be a super popular character in the comics. Again, here we see a new suit that he has for 2018, rocking out some fun stuff. So I can't wait to see where the comic book character goes from here with a lot of the nuances that they have nowadays, where he's like training a young protege and he's been the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while, and he's done all these different things and all these facets of stuff. And it just keeps getting cooler and cooler and more mythos. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
They have been doing, like we said, they've been doing a great job. I see KDD saying that she loves the comedy that they add into these movies. Yeah. And I know we've said it time and time again that they're comic book movies, so you got to have some of that comedy in there.
Yeah, comic is in the first word. These guys should be a little funny.
But absolutely, man. Like, Iron Man's a great character, and I know we got a lot more to talk about him tonight. But what are we digging into now?
Absolutely, man. Well, since that wraps up your history lesson, we figured we'd give you guys a quick break by jumping into some PoDunk news, refreshing your minds, relaxing your little brains a little bit, and finding out some cool stuff going on in the wacky world around you.
PoDunk News.
All right, man. Well, we got some real crazy news stories coming at you guys. PoDunk News is your best place to get all the wacky things that are going on out there in this PoDunk world. So let's kick it off, man. We got some stuff coming from, the capital of the Avengers Tower, at least, or even, I think, even the new Avengers facility and up there in good old New York.
Oh, you know what? Why don't you tell everyone real quick about how they can get a hold of their own copy of Thor Ragnarok on Blu-ray?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We don't want to leave this out, guys. We started this promotion last week, but it's still going strong for the next few weeks. But you definitely don't want to wait. You want to get this out there. If you guys go over to our YouTube channel where you can find all the past episodes of the Power Hour of Love, and also some of our awesome playthrough and reviews where we go over some video games and do some reviews. If you guys go there and you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you guys will then be entered into the possibility to win a copy of the Thor Ragnarok Blu-ray when it is released on, March 6th?
March 5th. It's released March 6th. Yeah. We're going to do our drawing for it on March 5th. So that March 6th, we can mail it right out to whoever the lucky winner is. But yes, I'm sorry, it is March 6th.
Absolutely, man. And like we said, all you guys do is go out there to YouTube, search Power Hour of Love, hit that subscribe button, man. And, then, you guys will be entered to win, and it's going to be great, man. We're trying to do all these new things and contests and stuff. We hope you guys are loving it. Let us know what you think in the comments, man. But definitely, you don't have to do it right now, but, after the show, definitely head on over to YouTube and give our YouTube channel a subscribe.
Absolutely. And if you're already subscribed, you're already in the raffle, dude. So, good luck to everybody who joins in. If you want some extra chances or win, share it to some family members or friends. Have them subscribe. All you got to do is subscribe, so you don't got to pay anything, and you may get something for free. Doesn't sound like any reason not to do it. And Party Man Will, yes, I did have to adjust the camera. So thank you for calling me out on it.
Definitely. We're like we said, this is Jarvis here, our version of Jarvis.
Yeah, where I just actually do everything.
Yes.
I can't ask the computer to.
I don't know if we shouldn't have left this out of the history lesson. Jarvis was actually his butler in the original comics, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
A human butler, not the robotic tech that we know from there. But anyhow, we'll be back to more Iron Man stuff in just a bit. We got some crazy news, and like I said, what better to start it off than a wild story here, man? We can't go from one, comic to another, man. We got to talk about one of the hottest movies to come out this weekend.
Dude, the Black Panther. I got my official Start Here comic book. It's a free preview. I got it over at Big Dog Comics and Thunderdome Gaming on the corner of Fort Pierce Midway 1 up in US 1, man. Go see Captain Joel. Tell him you want a preview of the Black Panther for free. Tell him the Power Hour love sent you. He'll probably get mad because I think you're actually supposed to pay for him.
Well,
But yeah, I got the book. I was jazzed to go see the movie. I know I went and checked it out this weekend. Did you get a chance to check it out, Senior Boy?
I did. And I know we're going to dig into it a little bit, but don't worry, guys. If you haven't seen it, don't run from the video. We're not going to give any spoilers. We're just going to give a quick, opinion on what we thought of the film. So since you say that you saw it, what'd you think, man?
Absolutely. I thought it was good. Yeah. if we're going spoiler free, I don't think there's much more I can say about it than that. Other than it was stunning visually.
Yes.
It looked like a 4K movie. I do think, just being me, I think some of the CGI probably was a little overdone. There may have been a bit too much for my taste in some portions of it, but everything that was just a grounded, real shot. It's the first time I've ever been to a theater and been like, this looks like it's in 4K. Everything looked so crystal clear and vivid all the time that it was beautiful. The action scenes were a lot of fun, pretty great. Story was decent. I don't think it was mind-blowing in any sense, but, the story was solid. It was very good. So I would definitely be like, yeah, go check it out. I'm pretty sure everyone has, considering it just had one of the top 5 biggest openings of all time.
It definitely had a lot of lead up. I know a lot of the internet sites, which we don't really pay a lot of attention to. We like to be our own critics and stuff like that. But it was getting blown up. I know on Rotten Tomatoes, it had 100% for a good couple days before it opened, and I think right now it's at a 97, which is awesome by their ratings. I think on IMDb it's at a 7.9. That's always fluctuating as more and more people see it. I did also get a chance to see it. I did really enjoy it. I thought the story was good. I really liked the villain. There's one thing about these Marvel movies is sometimes the villains are a little hit or miss. They're never bad, but they're sometimes you're just man, I wish they got a little more screen time. Well, I think with this particular villain, I think they did a great job really kind of telling you where he was at and what his motivations were. And while some stuff might be debatable, it was still, I thought, very well played.
Yeah.
I will say that, while I was seeing the movie, this is no judge on the movie. This was the theater that I went to go see it in. I was sitting there, and apparently there was something wrong with one of the AC units in one of the other theaters, so they were rerouting some of the AC.
Okay.
Well, while I was there watching Black Panther, I felt like I was getting the 4D experience because I felt like I was in freaking Africa, So yeah, it was
just hot as balls.
It was very hot as balls. I went out and I asked the nice young lady at guest services if she could do anything, and she promptly told me that yes, they were working on it, and then we would have air, and within 5-10 minutes you could feel it when the air kicked back on. So I was like, oh yeah, and I think that was one of the inside scenes, so it kind of went right along with the movie's 4D-ness, when they're outside in the bright sun, hot as hell, inside, nice and cool.
I have to say, one of my favorite things about it was that they had Martin Freeman.
Yes.
And Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis does all sorts of stuff, played Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. Martin Freeman played Bilbo in The Hobbit.
Yes.
So they're kind of your Tolkien white guys in the movie.
Absolutely, man. Definitely it's a very interesting film.
Yeah. It's really well done. It's really well put together. I have to say, to me, I see Justin Jordan kind of called it out in the comments, so I want to go right to it. He's like, Black Panther has armor, and in a lot of ways, this character feels like a mix of Iron Man and Thor put together. Yeah. Because he's a bit of that outsider like Thor is, living on a place that doesn't really interact with the rest of the world, but he's very much in his suit and protected like Iron Man, you know? So that means he has to cover a lot of different bases without telling the same story as either of those two movies. And I think that was very challenging. And I would have liked to see it connect more to the Marvel Universe. I think that's kind of my biggest thing that I was kind of let down on it, was I felt like it was so standalone that and then it was short, but trying to have characteristics of both those movies, trying to show you what it was like to be a king of Wakanda, but also be a guy in a suit who has to do that. And it seemed like it struggled to tell me both stories at the same time.
Absolutely, man. Well, definitely you guys go out there, check it out. Come back, tell us what you guys thought. You know, like I said, we wanted to keep this very brief because we don't want anybody to tag us with some spoilerific stuff. So I think we're going to move right along to our next news story.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this is the one I've been waiting to kind of shell out here, man. Like, you know, we were talking about how, you know, up there in New York, you know, you got the Avengers Tower, you got the X Mansion, you got, you know, the new Avengers facility. Well, this guy, you know, he was out there. He's a 49-year-old firefighter, and him and his friends get together every year to go on this big ski trip in New York. Well, apparently, at some point during the trip, he disappeared.
Okay.
You know, so of course, his friends and family were freaking out. Well, 6 days later, he shows up in California. He just appeared.
Okay.
The guy has no idea. I guess he goes to a local police station. He's like, I have no idea how I'm in California. You know, and yeah, so now the New York State Police are investigating what could possibly have gone on, but you know,
Smoke
a lot of
weed every day.
there's definitely been a lot of online suggestions on how, you know, he ended up in one place.
Sounds like a Breaking Bad episode. You know?
I mean, it does. I think Aliens has been one of like the
Aliens. He took a ride on one of those Wakanda ships.
There you go. But absolutely, I'm going to keep my eye on this guy and see if anything ever comes out on how he went pretty much across the continent.
He looks pretty suspicious, though, doesn't he? He kind of looks like a heavy Andy Garcia.
There you go. So, yeah, moving on to our next story. Oh, man, I got the story here of the Raging Bull. In Idaho high school was put on lockdown after a bull escaped a local auction yard and started rampaging pretty much across the campus. So it was knocking over garbage cans and eating the grass and kind of like pushing on trees and stuff. So this thing was really pissed off.
Yeah, man, those things weigh thousands of pounds.
Absolutely. Well, the local police department was able to subdue the bull, and the whole matter only took about 15 minutes. But definitely, like I said, the whole concept of raging bull was definitely in effect here.
It's too bad they didn't have someone in like a superpowered suit that could just pull giant wild animals to the ground.
There you go. That's exactly what they needed. They needed something to get control of it. I don't want to get it. I almost threw out a spoiler here for the movie, but absolutely, like I said, the bull was subdued. So definitely, just a little interesting story I wanted to throw out there. But this one's pretty funny here. I think you guys will dig it.
Okay, what do we got going on with the pizza?
The pizza stalker in Germany is still at large.
Okay.
A local lawyer has received over 100 pizzas from an anonymous person over the last month.
That sounds awesome. Someone can send me 100 anonymous pizzas.
I had a feeling when I was pulling up this story that I thought you'd be like, "Hey, I'll take that right here,"
Yeah, seriously.
But apparently, like these pizza delivery, you like on your phone, you get like a notice if you do use like an online service to get your pizza. Like, I guess sometimes they start as early as when the guy's like in the shower. So at like 7 in the morning. I don't even. Most pizza places I don't think are open that early, but it's probably in the online system. But yeah, so he'll be in the shower and his phone will go off and saying he's going to get a pizza delivery late. Well, the lawyer went to the police department and he was trying to press some charges, but they're like, well, if there's no suspect, like,
well, what's the crime? Like harassment?
Yeah, harassment.
You're harassing me by giving me free stuff? But feel free to harass me, man.
I figured, like I said, you would be in on that one, man.
Because I understand being like, oh, man, I don't want pizza right now.
Yeah.
Throw it away or whatever, but then you'll get another one later? That sounds great.
You're like, yeah, it might be well, get this. You want to see, this anonymous person is so giving that they've also mixed it up a little bit. Sometimes he receives sushi, sausages, and Greek food.
Oh my gosh. Okay, see, look, we're being complete dummies about this. Eric G just put in the comments, the dude has to pay cash when it gets delivered.
Yeah. So
So he's not just getting free pizza, which would be kick-ass. He's getting a problem. So, okay. But again, shouldn't that pizza place be filing charges on this guy who's bunk. I mean, he's not paying for him, is he?
No.
pay
It's
for
definitely
him.
showing up at his office and stuff. And I'm sure like the ladies
That
up
was
front are
weird.
probably like, "Did you order this? Did you?" I mean, by now I'm sure they're probably like, "Not for us." I would think that the pizza place, if they get an order from him,
Yeah, they would just ban that. Like,
Or-
never deliver
or
pizza
they-
to that address.
they call him and say, "Hey, is this legit?" But apparently this is still going on. The
Yeah.
guys tried to get some police help, but they're like, "Well, unless you have a suspect,
Yeah.
there's nothing really we can do about it."
Yeah.
So the pizza stalker's still at large. Oh man, I'm sure you guys recognize this guy. Who's that up there, El Bandito?
Oh man, he's the legendary George Carlin, man. Rest in peace.
You know it, man. And if you see right next to him, there's this BMW with a license plate that says "funny." Well, that car was the last car owned by George Carlin, and just so you guys know, it's been put up for auction.
So you can own George Carlin's car?
Yes, the last
the
car.
Carlin?
Yeah. The Carlin. There you go. The car that Carlin was. He wasn't driving this when he passed away, but the last car that he owned. You can now purchase it.
Sounds pretty cool.
The 1996 BMW still has under 80,000 miles.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The caretaker of it said that 11,000 miles were put on by Carlin himself.
Yeah.
While he owned it. It's never been in an accident, and it's been in the care of his daughter since Carlin's death in 2008. So.
Okay.
I guess she's only used it a handful of times. So, yeah, we're not sure if the funny license plate comes with the car or not. But, yeah.
It would be funny.
It would be funny, So it has the little lights that go.
Yeah.
So Carlin definitely rode around in a little bit of style, But, hey, at the same time, though, he was a little thrifty. The car was
Well,
about
what are
10
they
years old.
asking for the car?
It's not currently pretty much like they're making people like put out offers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You got to bid on it.
Yeah,
I got
it's an auction, so.
Okay. Well, still very fun, man. Seems like a worthwhile investment for a collector who's got a ton of money. I'm sure Jay Leno will buy it or something.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely, man. I just like the look on Carlin right up there. He's like, who's going to pay for my car?
Did you buy a car because George Carlin used to own it? No.
Oh, here we go. We got a lot of people. We got Eric G saying apparently he loves sports cars. I remember he used to have a joke about it, what cars said about the person and stuff. So,
Well, that'll about wrap it up for some news for right now. What do you say we jump into some more Iron Man mythos?
let's do it.
All right, let's check it out.
Oh man. Well, like we were saying, earlier on, we gave you guys that little bit of a history lesson. We talked a lot about the comics and how they affected the movies and stuff. But, I think now it's like we have to talk about like some of the, probably the most important comics in the full Iron Man mythology. What do you think about that, El Bandito?
Absolutely. I think that's a super great idea because some of these iconic stories are the things that made like lifelong fans of the character. You know? Everyone, reads comics and you enjoy it and you love it, but there's only a handful of storylines that just stick with you, and you remember forever because they come out every month. You read a couple hundred of them after a character, and they're not all winners. Some of them are a little ho-hum, but sometimes they hit you with these amazing stories. I mean, Tales of Suspense 39 was obviously a story that just punched right through that anthology barrier into being like, this is an amazing book with an amazing character and a really innovative origin and idea.
You know it, man. Like you said, the first has always got to get mentioned. I know we talked about it earlier with the, the history lesson and stuff, and that classic cover with Iron Man on there and all his iron glory. I know later on, like a character called the Ironmonger looked a lot like that, like in a real silvery kind of look. So,
and that's who ends up in the 2008 film, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that
correct.
Obadiah Stane is portraying.
And definitely, so like we said, I know we talked about this earlier, where a lot of the classic mythos and origins came from. Definitely got to throw a shout out for Tales of Suspense number 39. But what do we got next, El Bandito?
Let's check it out. Oh, we got Doom Quest.
Oh man, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Doom Quest, and there's some real cool stuff on why this makes this a very iconic story. This story was originally published in Iron Man number 149 through 150, and the story revolves around Iron Man and Doctor Doom being transported back to the age of King Arthur.
Whoa, that's pretty wild.
So you could just imagine it, back in those times, you see a guy like Doctor Doom and Iron Man, they think like, look at these knights and they're like badass armor and stuff. So it was really cool that not immediately and I'm sure like Iron Man was probably like, well, I guess I can't just go blasting them, because he's like, these people are going to be like, what the heck? I mean, they could have said he was a wizard or something, but it had a really cool wraparound and taking these modern age comic characters and bringing them back to the medieval times. So where this story really gets a lot of its credibility, I guess. I mean, of course, it's a cool story and concept, but years later they went on to create the Marvel 1609. It was like
1604.
Yeah, 1604 story.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman wrote that.
Yeah, and it's all about like people from the Marvel universe actually kind of developing back in those times. Mm-hmm. Well, Neil Gaiman, as you were just saying, I guess read this Doom Quest, and that's kind of where that idea popped into his mind and said, you know what? Rather than them going back in time, I'd rather go and pretty much just make it so that all the characters were pretty much developing in that time. So, Doctor Doom is like an evil baron of like this land versus like, being the ruler of a whole country. And, Tony Stark isn't like, he doesn't have all his scientific, his suit probably is more like classic knight armor.
Yeah. I just looked it up. It's 1602.
1602. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I thought I was a little off on that. I was like, I know I have that book. Actually, I lent it to a friend of mine. So
very cool, man. Well, like you said, it's a classic because it inspired many other stories that dealt with like not so much all just the time travel, but as you guys could probably figure out, Iron Man and Doctor Doom did find their way back to
some interesting stuff. Though, a lot of people know Doctor Doom from sort of the modern Fantastic Four films, which are really a bad portrayal of the original character. Doctor Doom originally wore that armor because he was mangled in an experiment and stuff that he did. So that's why he built it and wore it. And he did have lasers and stuff in that suit, but it was mostly to kind of conceal his body and make him look badass, right? But also, what really super gets left out of the movies all the time is that he is like a wizard, like for real. He's like Doctor Strange. He learned magic and stuff, and when they realized he was evil, they're like, dude, get out of here. We don't know, you can't train with us anymore. But his mom was like some weird gypsy witch or something and passed down a lot of that knowledge. So, yeah, he definitely controls mysticism. And that was always something that sort of contrasted with Iron Man very well, because he's the science, and then you have people with the mysticism or the magics or the dark arts, and to me that's always one of those tales that those genre tales of like science fiction versus science fantasy or fantasy in general, like who would really win. So I love that aspect of that. I love that aspect of this story. I also think it's great that they just wholeheartedly went with the knights in shining armor thing.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, and I think Marvel ultimately always denies this, but a lot of people are like, so DC has Batman, the Dark Knight, who is a billionaire, and then you have Iron Man, who looks like a knight. He's a guy who literally wears armor, and he's a billionaire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's always been a lot of parallels there between the two characters, and I like that this just went for it.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, classic book, came out in like the early 80s. Definitely go check it out. I'm sure you get it in graphic novel form nowadays.
And if you haven't checked out 1602, his suit is actually made of wood.
Oh, okay.
Iron Man's suit is made of wood, and he has like an acidic compound that's similar to what we would put in a battery today. But I think he like has to get it struck by lightning or something. It's like really cool. It's really a cool book. You guys should check it out.
So what's next, man? What we got here?
Oh man.
Well, we mentioned this a little earlier with the whole story with Rhodey and stuff like that, But man, Demon in a Bottle from 1979. This is from now you guys gotta imagine like Marvel, just like DC, have been around for a long time, so sometimes they do with these things like they call volumes. So they'll end volume 1 and then start volume 2. So this story here is from Iron Man volume 2, and it was 120 to 129, this full-on story.
Yeah.
So this definitely is like one of the first times with Tony's dive into alcoholism. Definitely one of the most referenced Iron Man storylines throughout his career. Like you said, in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, something that persisted with the character, this sort of battle with alcoholism. And yeah, their volume 2 consisted of the original run of the Invincible Iron Man, where volume 1 are the issues and tales of suspense.
Yes.
So that 118 that we mentioned where Rhodey shows up is 2 issues before this story arc starts.
Correct.
Where he's actually battling the kind of demon in a bottle. It's him coming to grips with his alcoholism and realizing he's either going to do something about it or he's going to become a villain.
Absolutely, man. And that's why we're throwing a lot of numbers out there and stuff. We just want to make sure you guys are following along, like when we're saying, oh, this is number 50, this is number so-and-so. So absolutely, but very important Iron Man story.
Absolutely. Probably one of the most important because it defines his character in a way that few other traits about him do. So I really would herald this one as one of the best stories for Iron Man. But that's not to discount Tales of Suspense number 50. That's right. We're going way back to only, what is that? That's
11 issue, or since that was the 11th issue since his debut.
Yeah.
And the reason that this comics earned a spot on their list is because it was the first appearance of the Mandarin.
Absolutely.
Now,
man.
if your only experience with the Mandarin is Iron Man 3, you got to go and pick up some graphic novels and comics because he has definitely been one of the most villainous characters to Iron Man in the comics. You know, his organization's called the Nine Rings. That's because he actually has 9 rings that have different powers that he can use to fight Iron Man.
Yeah, again, mystical abilities and stuff like that. Some of them are like, oh, they're from space rocks and stuff like that. But he sells them to his people as mysticism and that he's sort of a wizard in his own right. So again, it plays right into that science versus fantasy, but in the sense that the Mandarin is trying to turn science into fantasy.
Exactly.
Which is what I think makes him such a great arch nemesis of Iron Man.
Plus, he was also one of the first characters to be able to summon Feng Fang Foom out of his restful slumber. So if you guys have never heard of Feng Fang Foom, go look him up too. Big giant dragon. I'll be honest, when I first saw the Avengers trailer and that big dragon thing I was like, oh my God, they're bringing in Feng Fang Foom. But no, it was just one of those Centauri dragon robots or whatever.
Yeah, one of their battleship things or something.
Either way, awesome character.
Yes.
Definitely
iconic.
Very much underplayed in the movies, but if you guys have ever seen any of the mini episodes, there might be that the Mandarin, the actual Mandarin, may eventually show up in the movies too. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and Ben Kingsley was a great choice to play him. The kind of direction they took in the movie versus the extras they put on the DVD and Blu-ray that kind of alluded to the fact that the Mandarin was more than meets the eye. Really left it open to do something great. So we'll see if something comes of that and we really get a really great Mandarin story. But moving on from that, we've got Iron Man Extremis.
Oh man, it's funny because I know we always tie it a lot back to what comics have really influenced the movies, but I have to say, as I was doing some research on this one, El Bandito, man, this one did a lot of influencing
Absolutely.
on the movie. I know with the history lesson, as you were saying some stuff, I'm like, well, maybe maybe some of these aren't the first time they were brought up into the comics, but it definitely re-brought them back.
Yeah, reinforced some
them.
Classic points of the Iron Man mythos, yeah.
The story behind this is that after being wounded, Iron Man uses a serum to heal himself, which also gives him some mental control over his various suits, which if you guys have ever seen Iron Man 3, there's definitely some aspects of that in there. But rolling back all the way back to Iron Man 1, the whole Tony Stark being an arms dealer and having this involvement in weaponry and stuff, and just certain aspects of the origin that are explored in this comic are reused in the movie, and also the design of the original Iron Man suit from Iron Man, not the silver one, but the red and gold one, that is taken right from the pages. This, if you guys look at it, it looks like it just came right off of the movie. So definitely that's where it influenced the first movie. The second movie was influenced by the suitcase suit, that definitely has that in the book as well. And then the third movie deals heavily with Extremis, as a plot point. So definitely this book, I would say, if we're talking about the movies, this book is very influential.
Yeah. Pretty much the whole third movie revolves around the story out of this book. And also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of branches off of the Extremis story and really rides its coattails for its first story arc. So,
you know it, man. But this next story we're going to talk about, man, definitely also plays a big part in part of the movies. This is The Mask in the Iron Man. This story came out in 2001. It was Iron Man Volume 3, number 26. In this in this story, Tony's armor becomes sentient. So at first it's helpful, it's like, oh, he's in an armor, and then his suit can kind of just control itself and do another thing, but eventually Tony must battle, and destroy the suit. It's the typical kind of Terminator level.
Yeah. Like the suit thinks it knows better than Tony, and if it needs to protect him, it needs to confine him.
Yes.
And things like that. So it's definitely a pretty awesome story. It goes right in line with what our last story is, the 5 Nightmares. And these are the 5 nightmare scenarios that Tony Stark thinks of. One, of course, is the sentientness of his AI, of it actually coming to life and then being something he has to contend with. Another one is people stealing his Iron Man technology and using it for evil. Another thing that we see in the second movie where Justin Hammer is trying to steal his technology, different things like that. We won't spoil the whole book for you, but definitely one to check out, and definitely something that plays a lot into the films. Again, like you said, in the third film, I think the one shot that's almost taken right from the comics you mentioned and put in the movie is where the suit comes to his bed while he's asleep and he's having a nightmare, and it wakes the suit up. Yeah. That is a shot that's actually it's either in the one that you mentioned or the 5 Nightmares.
Yes.
I know I read both of them like back to back, so I don't remember which one it's from. But in one of them, it's literally like that, like the suit wakes him up in bed. And I was like, wow, that is pulled from the pages, man. So excellent story work there when someone wants to take it and put it on screen for other people.
And, it's funny, man, like just kind of talking about the history of Iron Man and like all these things from the comics. Like, I mean, I always say that, Iron Man 2 is probably one of my least favorite Marvel films. Mm-hmm. But like the fact that they pulled so much stuff from the comics, I think kind of even just in this night has made it more... It's gained more credibility to me that that what they were trying to do there, so that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, guys. So there you go. Those are some of the best comic stories that we could find that we remember from the annals of the Iron Man. If you know a story that we missed out, make sure to throw it in the comments and stuff like that, because maybe we haven't read it yet. Maybe we'd love to check it out, So spread some love, spread these stories, run to your local comic book brick and mortar store. You can grab on Amazon if you want, get the graphic novel. I totally understand. Most of these I bought in graphic novels, but we'd love to see the brick and mortar stores stay alive. So support them when you can as well. I'm not saying go buy a Tales of Suspense number 50. Right? We know a guy who would, but you don't have to. Just get the graphic novel, read a reprint or something, because these stories are classic, they're iconic, and they still work today because we see them in these films.
Absolutely, man. So cool. So many great stories. Like you said, definitely check them out and give some love for Iron Man.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that was just a short little segment to get you guys kind of more into the Iron Man mood and just craving more. But you know what?
What's up?
Let's jump into some PoDunk news.
Let's do it.
PoDunk News.
All right, man. That first section of PoDunk News, we talked about a lot of movies. We talked a lot about a lot of crazy stories. Now we're going to give you a little dose of some video game stuff that might be heading your way. Oh, wait a minute. What was I thinking? I can't forget about this. Man, okay, so we got a little more movie stuff coming your way, but we know if you guys are in the, in here checking this out and you don't know what film this is, tell them what it is, Bandito.
This is Ash versus the Army of Darkness.
Yes, the official title, but absolutely Army of Darkness, 1993. But even better, you guys can, tell everybody this tomorrow that you're watching the Power Hour and you got this piece of knowledge. Tonight, as we're celebrating this awesome night with you guys, chilling with the Power Hour, talking about Iron Man, it is the 25th anniversary of the release of Army of Darkness.
Yep, that's right. February 19th.
Absolutely, man. It was the first night, people got to go see Ash get sucked into the age of King Arthur.
Absolutely, and go battle with the demons and knights of old and use magic and all sorts of very similar things to what Doom Quest had in it.
Pretty much. Hey, that's a pretty interesting parallel, man. This was totally meant to be. But yeah, I see Katie D in here saying she's a Deadite. She knows what it's all about. We also know that the upcoming Ash versus Evil Dead new season is starting next week. So definitely go out there. Tonight's a great night after the Power Hour to go and check out Army of Darkness.
And I see KDD's also like, hey, you guys need to cover Hawkeye next, man. He's awesome.
Man.
I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to give you some spoilers right now.
Oh.
In our final segment, we are going to talk about Hawkeye a little bit. So stick around for that. It's going to be fun.
There you go. But here, let's keep rolling with this news here,
right.
man.
Uh-oh. We got some war dramas. What's going on here?
Oh, man. This is the big news, man, or at least what I've read so far. Man, it appears that Call of Duty franchise will be making its way to the big screen sometime in the next few years.
Man, their stories are always these, epics and stuff in their single player. I've never played through any of them. I couldn't tell you one story in any of those games.
I think
just play the multiplayer thing.
I think I played through Black Ops, and I really
that's true. I did play through Black Ops. All right, Black Ops was bad.
Well, apparently they're looking to start their own cinematic universe based on the Call of Duty series.
Is Universal doing it? It sounds like something Universal would do, like their monster movie bullshit.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that monster movie thing is down the toilet. But yeah, absolutely.
Or like Sony.
I don't know who's attached to it yet. I just know
Sony can't seem to get a universe together to save their lives, can they?
But this is supposedly the big video game news, is that eventually you're going to see Call of Duty on big screen. Now, I take it that when they say that the franchise is coming, they're talking about the characters and stuff, because almost any like war movie or something you could almost kind of attribute to like, oh, this is almost like a Call of Duty game. But I know there's certain individuals in the game that they're probably going to have represented on the big screen. So definitely we'll have to see where it goes.
Yeah, sounds interesting, to say the least.
Well, just another thing that we thought sounded pretty interesting is, last week we had our big Valentine's Day show. We hope you guys had a lot of blast. If you had fun on Valentine's Day, throw it up in the comments. But we're going to tell you, man, the MMO world out there was rocking with Valentine's Day, where they all had these cool things going on to celebrate the loving holiday. So over there, DC Online, I know you've played a little bit of this one, El Bandito. They had some love-based feats for the healer characters, and some missions that revolved around probably, who knows, maybe you're like Harley made you go get the Joker or something like that. But there was some storylines that were specific for the time frame of Valentine's Day, so that was cool. Over on Pokemon Go, the Loved creature, if you were to catch them, you could sell them back to the trainer for 3 times the Stardust, which is used in the game to advance your Pokemon. So I know a lot of people are probably running around literally, and trying to collect that one. Over there, MMO Classic, World of Warcraft, new weapons, accessories, and mounts were available, all themed in Valentine's Day.
Nice.
And our personal favorite, Friday the 13th. Over the weekend, it was a double XP showdown.
Nice, man. Did you get like triple XP if you did that move where Jason rips your heart out?
See, we definitely need to hook up with
Ilphonic. Where you at? How did you drop the ball on that one, bro?
That's pretty awesome. I think I did go up like 3 or 4 levels just playing like the offline bots.
Yeah.
So it's like, not that I'm antisocial or anything, but it was kind of fun just getting to play as Jason and wreck house and gain some extra XP, So just that was pretty cool. So what else we got on here, El Bandito? Oh, man, now it's time for us to tell you about an awesome event that's coming up this weekend, man. So Saturday, February 24th, we have Comic-Con Revolution taking place in West Palm Beach, Florida, just a little bit down the road from us.
Nice. Yeah, not too far away at all.
It is a one-day-only event. Tickets for an adult are $25. Okay. For teenagers, it's $15. Any children under the age of 12 are completely free.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The times from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
And guests include legendary X-Men writer Chris Claremont.
Whoa, nice.
And Ming Cheng from AMC's Comic Book Men.
Nice.
You know that one? That's Kevin
Smith's show.
Yeah. So those get they'll be down there. Ming will be hanging out, and Chris Claremont, a bunch of other guests. I know there's a bunch
Chris
of
Claremont wrote the X-Men story for like 30 years continuously. This guy's like unbelievable. He's like a legend in comics.
Absolutely, man. So if you guys got some comics, from like the 80s and stuff like that, like the Dark Phoenix trilogy or series and so forth, bring them on down there. Or just go down there and talk to good old Chris, man. Or, you talk to Ming Chang, be like, hey, how's it working for Kevin Smith and that Walt Flanagan guy? But absolutely, I hope you guys get down there and hang out at Comic-Con Revolution.
Sounds like a blast, man. We'll have to see if we can get down there and check it out. But that's going to about wrap it up for some more of our news there. And I know it's what you guys have probably been waiting for the whole time. Let's get into the MCU and let's find out what Iron Man has been doing on the silver screen. What do you think about that?
Let's do it, man.
All right.
All right, so now we're getting into the cinematic. We've talked about a bunch of the comic books. We've talked about the history. So what's going on here?
All right, well, we're going to combine two things together, hopefully save a little bit of time, and we are going to do our official rating structure for Iron Man as an Avenger leading up to our Infinity War countdown, and we are going to try to judge and pick who the Power Hour's favorite Avenger is.
All right, man, let's get rolling.
All right, like I said, we need your guys' help to help us vote on this towards the end of the segment. So hang around. You can vote on YouTube and stuff like that later. So check out the rest of the segment and keep in mind your votes for the end of the segment here. All right, so we're going to start off talking about powers and abilities, right?
Okay.
How do you feel about Iron Man's powers and abilities? Let's take a look first and foremost at the fact that without the Iron Man suit, he's a genius, a billionaire, a playboy, and a philanthropist.
Classically worded.
Absolutely, man. That line comes from the 2012 Avengers movie when he's arguing with Captain America, telling him everything special about you came out of a bottle. And then he's like, Captain America says back to him, he's like, yeah, take away your suit. What are you?
Yeah,
and that's what he says. And you're like, man, that's kind of a good comeback right there.
Absolutely, man. Definitely, hey, his wit definitely is could be considered a power.
Oh, his genius, his charisma, and everything like that. But more so than that, let's talk about the suit, man.
Yeah.
All right? This thing has got weapons galore. It's got laser beams. It's got rockets. It's got missiles. It's got all sorts of stuff all over it, man.
The ability to fly.
He can fly. His repulsors that are non-lethal, which are really cool. I think that's an aspect that is obvious but never directly stated on screen, where he can blast normal people with the repulsors and it doesn't kill them. Now obviously when he's shooting missiles at tanks, you're like, whoever was driving that tank's probably like super dead. But for the most part, he has some ability to non-lethally combat people, which is great. But also the fact that he's a ranged adversary is really cool. He has a lot of ranged weapons and stuff, and that he's always innovating, and this laser here that he's using, remember he's trying to cut into that giant like flying creature thing in the last Avengers movie.
Yes.
And Jarvis tells him, he's like, sir, we will lose power before we ever penetrate that thing's armor, Well, even still, you got to imagine, this was the same thing that in Iron Man 2, you remember he used to chop a bunch of robots in half?
Oh, yeah.
So, a pretty beast mode weapon, man.
You know it, man. Definitely. I mean, every time I've seen it on screen, I've been like, I don't want to get hit with that.
But I don't think anything comes close to what I think my favorite Iron Man scene like ever is.
What's that?
It's in the Avengers. It's when he first shows up in Germany when Loki is fighting Captain America.
Okay.
And he swoops down and he blasts Loki, and he pulls out every freaking weapon that he has. Every little port opens, every little missile comes out, everything. And he just tells him, your move, reindeer games.
Yes.
And it's like, awesome. Dude, when you see the artillery this cat has, War Machine's got the big Gatling gun and stuff like that, but if you ask me, he's just compensating.
Sure. No, that's pretty cool, man. I really do need to go back and rewatch some of those earlier films, man, because that is an awesome scene.
So all in all, what would you rate his power level at?
Man, being that, like you said, I mean, it's in the suit, so it could be disabled. There's the power thing if he takes too much damage. I would probably say I would give his power rating an 8.
An 8?
Yeah.
All right, I would give his power rating like a freaking 12 because he's like insano crazy. Okay. But we have to average it out together, and I think an 8 is right where we want to be at for that, because again, you're comparing him to people like Thor, who is invincible without a suit.
Sure.
People like the Hulk, who can level a building and is invincible without a suit. So yeah, an 8 I think would definitely put him right up there as far as being as formidable as he is, but still having 2 points taken away for the fact that he can be killed. He is mortal. And although in Iron Man 3 they show him being very formidable without his suit, that's still against people that aren't necessarily superpowered.
That's very true. That was kind of cool. Remember, he had like the little hand things on, but he didn't have the rest. It looks like here in the comments we got KDD saying intelligence is a big deal, and she would have rated it at a 7. So just thank you, KDD. We appreciate you sticking around and helping us judge and see what's going on here. But definitely, I think an 8 is where we stand.
Absolutely. All right, so next up, his role in the Battle of New York. Now, obviously, this is the classic Battle of New York in Avengers. So we've already just talked about a little bit of his firepower, but what impact did he actually have on the battle itself?
I mean, let's be honest. Without Iron Man, there wouldn't be any New York. So, yeah, I would have to give him a 10.
No doubt, man. I mean, first and foremost, his maneuverability and agility kind of trumps everything else going on. He can chase around these guys. He brings them in from the ranged weapons and stuff like that. And he's really key in keeping the fight contained. He also gets Hawkeye where he needs to be, stuff like that.
Yep.
But your point,
yeah.
They shot a nuclear missile at Manhattan, and he pushed it into the portal, into another part of space, and blew up the Chitauri army on the other side of a portal, saving everyone and everything in Manhattan.
Absolutely, man. So what's our final verdict, man?
I got one more quick aspect here is the fact that he couldn't be seduced by the scepter.
That's because of his heart, right?
Yeah. So that actually is very important. Had he been seduced by Loki at this point, had the Mind Stone that's inside the scepter swayed him, I'm pretty sure all would have had been lost.
Oh, absolutely, man. We say, he has such a valuable role by the end of the movie, and all he asks for in reward is some shawarma.
No doubt. But again, not only him being pivotal to winning, but what would he have been if he was an enemy at the end of the movie?
Kind of like how they did the Hawkeye and stuff like that.
Factoring absolutely. That into the equation, I'm absolutely rating this at a 10. His importance to that battle being won is a 10.
Absolutely, man. I can't disagree with that one bit.
All right, so next up, we've got Assemble. Now, this is really cool because this is factoring in what influence does Iron Man bring over other superheroes, i.e., what Avengers does he bring to the table? Who does he assemble, right?
Well, definitely
we'll run through a list.
Oh, go for it. Sure.
So first up, man, we got the Black Widow. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, well, Black Widow's kind of Captain America's girl, always hanging out with her.
Sure.
She actually first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 52 alongside Iron Man as a villain, and then later, as a communist villain, and later kind of becoming a double agent, working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything like that. So it was very fitting that her first appearance in film is in Iron Man 2, where she shows up as an ex-Russian spy and yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
So I would definitely put her in the category of Iron Man is bringing Black Widow to the table as far as Avengers go, because they kind of got linked up together,
Absolutely, man.
All right, moving on from there, believe it or not, Hawkeye came out in Tales of Suspense number 57.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. So even he has a really close tie to Iron Man.
Absolutely, so beyond that, he's a villain for him and all this stuff, and later gets recruited in the Avengers by Tony Stark. But I will say this, in the MCU, he first appeared in Thor's movie in 2011.
That's right. That was a really cool cameo when you look back at it.
It was super great. I love this line, too. That's why I grabbed the cap of it, where he's like, you better call it, Coulson, because I'm starting to root for this guy when Thor's beating up all the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
It's pretty cool, man. I think not that we ever want these movies to end, but if they ever did cap off, just being able to watch from the beginning till now, you would be you would catch so many little things that they had in there. So
absolutely.
Very cool.
And yeah, so I don't know. I think I'd give this maybe a 50% or like half a point kind of deal
Sure.
to saying that, yeah, he does kind of bring Hawkeye to the table, and the fact that he wouldn't have been an Avenger in the first place in comics. But in films, I would give Thor half credit as well. So maybe when we cover him somewhere down the road, we'll give him half a point for that.
There you go, KDD. If you're still watching out there, you got you a little bit of Hawkeye in there.
All right, moving on from there. Definitely War Machine.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely some major points right there. I mean, without Iron Man, there would be no War Machine. So, definitely.
And it's his best friend. He fights with him. So he's got War Machine on his side, which I think is a super valuable asset, as we saw in Civil War. And kind of the ace in the hole for him, man, is bringing Spider-Man into the fold. I mean, Spider-Man's traditionally never been part of the Avengers in comics.
Sure.
Until the Civil War, when Tony Stark kind of brings him in.
Yeah. No, and
this was very much paralleled in the film Civil War, where Iron Man brought him in.
No, absolutely, man. Like you said, when you're talking about the cinematic universe and stuff, which we're focusing on, yeah, definitely. I mean, he brought him, he found him and said, "Hey, I want to."
Yeah, come on, Underoos.
Yeah,
you know.
So that was definitely really cool, and like you said, definitely explored more with their interactions with Spider-Man: Homecoming. So. Definitely, yeah. Very cool addition there.
Yeah, and he's definitely bringing Spider-Man to the table, and Spider-Man is a huge asset with his great disproportionate strength. Like, he's crazy strong, his abilities, his speed, his spider sense. I mean, this is a formidable Avenger that he's bringing in.
Oh, yeah.
But moving on from there, we kind of got to give him, credit. Bitch in suit, by the way. I just wanted to mention that. It's in the trailer for Infinity War.
Does look pretty awesome.
But, we got to give him credit for Jarvis, man.
Absolutely. And especially,
You mentioned him earlier. I kind of knew I had this spot set up, so it was funny. But Edward Jarvis is portrayed in live action in the Agent Carter TV series, where he's Howard Stark's butler.
Oh, cool.
And helped raise Tony.
Okay.
So Tony names his artificial computer that kind of took Jarvis's job after him as an homage. But in the original comics, like you mentioned, like we see here, he was a live-action butler for Tony Stark all the time. Yes, very much like Alfred.
Absolutely, man. No, it's so cool, and I think that's neat that, like you said, in Agent Carter, they did make the actual character a person.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so that's
very close to the original comic. And I'll tell you this, a lot of people are like, well, he's not an Avenger, so like, why does he count as part of the Assemble? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because of this guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you guys may remember from Age of Ultron that the Mind Stone brought to life Jarvis's AI in the form of a hero we like to call the Vision.
Yes. And while, like I said, we're focused on MCU here, so it's like, it's cool that they took something that people were already established with, and they were like, we're going to make this a character.
Yes.
And like you said, it really made sense.
Yeah, the way they folded it in. Because his original origin story is like crazy. Like, I won't even get into it. It is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So the way they did it here was really great. And on top of that, I think there can be an argument made, again, for giving Thor kind of half credit on this guy.
Yeah.
Because remember, he jumps in, he shocks him with the hammer, and that's when Vision comes to life.
Yep.
So maybe you and I will have to discuss that later, whether or not we want to give some points to Thor over the Vision as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But either way, we couldn't deny the fact that he brought Vision to the table. One that we will kind of debate on, I'm sure, is Nick Fury.
Well, I mean... I would say because I mean, the movie, that's the first person Nick Fury, goes to look for.
He's in the end credits of the 2008 Iron Man. Sam Jackson shows up as Nick Fury to be like, hey, we're putting a team together, So in a sense, Iron Man was responsible for Nick Fury wanting to put the Avengers together. But if we look more into it, was he already setting that up because of the Hulk?
That's a good point.
So Fury might be someone that we're actually giving Hulk credit for.
Okay. So
that one's a little. I'm not 100% sure. He does first appear in this, so that's one thing. He was obviously a character outside of all of that mythos and originally in the comics. But the one super, super, super big deal that I'm like, this 110% goes to Iron Man without a doubt. Agent Coulson.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said, where he first appeared, definitely, and then he kind of just trickled throughout all the other
Yeah.
movies. And really, I mean, Coulson's a very important character just for his role in the Avengers. He's
Yeah.
why the Avengers assemble. I mean, besides
Absolutely. It's what they avenge.
Yes, yes. There you go. That's a good point. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
what they avenge.
Now,
so.
the one of the coolest things about Coulson is like I can't find any reference to him outside of the film. So I believe that he was created for the film. If I'm wrong, hey, correct me in the
I
comments.
think you're correct.
Put me a link to that. But I'm pretty sure that Clark Gregg, the actor portraying Phil Coulson, kind of embodied this character and made him come to life. This kind of humble, very quiet SHIELD agent who in the movie just wants to talk to Tony Stark. He just wants to talk to him about the suit. Are you Iron Man? What's going on?
That's pretty awesome.
And
yeah.
the way that all develops and kind of turns into different things, and the character becomes more and more prominent through Thor, through the Avengers, everything like that, and then spawning off into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the beloved characters we get out of that because of Clark Gregg and Agent Coulson, is really a huge boon for Iron Man in the assemble sense to me. And it goes without saying that, in it's kind of a spoiler. In the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like first season, and they're talking about how he's kind of brought back to life, he tells Nick Fury that the Tahiti project was only supposed to be used to bring back a fallen Avenger.
Yes.
And Fury tells him that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah, it's a very touching moment for Clark Gregg. You can tell Coulson's just like, oh my God, you're comparing me to an Avenger. And Fury's telling him, you're so instrumental in putting the team together, giving them the push that they needed to go out and be the Avengers, giving them something to avenge, which I know is probably not what he wanted to do. But he was so crucial to the Avengers being the Avengers that this is a major bonus for Iron Man.
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely being there from the beginning and definitely all of his roles throughout. Yeah, definitely Coulson and Iron Man bringing, yeah.
I'm going to throw some love for Phil Coulson right
there. You go.
He's my dog. So, granted, giving him all those points for all of those characters and then plus some in the wings that I know are smaller characters that we're not going to mention, I don't think we can't give him a 10. I mean, he's just bringing it to the table.
I mean, even from the comic aspect, I'm pretty sure Iron Man is the one who pulls everybody together from the Avengers Assemble standpoint. So
yeah, and in order to try to keep this a reasonable amount of time for tonight's episode, I did omit a lot of that in the history portion of this. But yeah, Iron Man, not SHIELD in the comics, forms the Avengers team. You know, it's actually the Wasp that names them the Avengers, and a lot of different mythos go into the original creation that we don't see in the MCU, but the way they're tying a bow on it is so nice that I really do kind of enjoy their backstory.
Absolutely, man. I can't disagree with that 10.
All right, moving on from there, we got your Avengers score. Now, this is what makes you an Avenger, man. What's your character development? Who are you as a person? What kind of hero are you? All these sort of things. And I thought it'd be appropriate to start off with just talking about Robert Downey Jr.
Sure.
And his portrayal of Iron Man and how he sort of captures and embodies the character. Because I just feel like this guy was born to play Tony Stark. And if you ever watch some of the behind-the-scenes footage, he's such a humble, nice guy. He's been through a lot of wild shit in his life, and he's using all of that experience to kind of bring to life the character of Tony Stark in a way more interesting way than I ever felt like he came off in comics.
Oh, and absolutely, man. One thing I like about him is he's an older guy. I mean? He's not... a lot of people joke and call Tom Holland's Spider-Man Spider-Boy because he's so young. What people forget, of course, is that Spider-Man did start off in high school, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But, Robert Downey Jr., what was he, 46, I think, when they
I think he was 41 when
Really?
this movie came out, yeah.
So that's kind of just wild to think that, the character, I would assume, would be close in age to what the guy playing him is.
Yeah.
So it's just
it made a lot of sense that he'd be an older guy who could build a suit, who did have engineering degrees, who had experience in his life. Yeah. All those things really made sense for the character, but I can't think of a lot of other 40-year-old actors that I think would have pulled it off.
Do you remember who Wizard pegged as being the guy who should play Tony Stark?
No.
it was supposed to be Tom Cruise.
Oh, wow.
And then another time, Nicolas Cage was actually a possibility.
Wow.
So just put those two into your mindset of.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've seen the quote from Jon Favreau. I've seen him actually say it in the behind-the-scenes footage where he's like, this was such a colossal undertaking for Jon Favreau to take on a movie of this size, the 2008 Iron Man, that he was like, I was really nervous. I'd never made a movie this big. The day I knew that everything was going to be fine was when they said we got Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Because he was going to make it happen. And in interviews you see with Robert Downey Jr. where he talks about his love for being an actor, for portraying things on screen, for bringing characters to life, you just realize that he cares about the project. I mean, you see him in like Civil War and realize that like that's not an Avengers movie, but he still came out to do it. He probably didn't get paid a super ton of money, but he had a huge part in that movie. So it shows that he cared about the character and the craft and the story and the universe enough to give it his all. And the guy's he's just awesome. He brings a lot of this very kind of charismatic influence to the character, a lot of poise and posture. They show him training a lot for it. And his acting ability, I mean, this is a half a second on screen where he almost gets shot in the face, but he has the Iron Man thing that comes out of his watch, and he puts it over this pistol. I think this is Bucky shooting him, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, that was it.
But I mean, look at his face in a half a second. This guy looks genuinely afraid.
Yeah,
like he's afraid for his life in this moment. It's that caliber of acting that he brings to the table, and then also can do something like this.
Yeah, no, very chill. No, absolutely. I think it was a great choice. Now it's almost like you almost couldn't imagine anybody else.
Yeah.
I know, just speaking, I know I've heard Robert Downey Jr. say at least so far, he's saying his days are numbered as far as, not to throw out any spoilers. Who knows what's going to happen in Infinity War, but, we just never know. So, he's done a great job so far. I hope he's around for a while.
It's funny, in the behind-the-scenes footage for the original Iron Man, he says he could probably do this for 5 to 7 years. Like we said, we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the character, and he's still large and in charge. Going to be out in Infinity War and the unnamed kind of fourth Avengers movie here. So, he's hanging in there to really do what needs to get done, and I think that's fantastic. But again, I can't stress enough how much emotion and character this guy brings to the table. Again, here in Civil War, kind of seeing how things are shaken down, and he's just like, this is a bad situation,
Absolutely, man. No, it is.
But
He's
you
a
really
great
feel
actor.
it. Yeah, and that's not to say that any of the other actors aren't excellent, because they are. Like, everyone they cast is so meticulously chosen, from Paul Bettany being the voice of Jarvis in the 2008 Iron Man to coming to life as the Vision in Age of Ultron, 7 years later. So
and you'd like to imagine that all that was planned out from the get-go, and who knows, maybe they had like little
hopes,
notes and
inklings, and maybe we could pull this off one day. But the fact that it's managed to come together, Kevin Feige and the architects, Avi Arad, who are behind everything, have really led this in the right direction and helped those kind of visions come true. And I think these fine actors really do a great job of bringing these characters to life and giving them more personality than I think they can have when different writers and artists portray the character over and over again. They never seem to have a lasting sort of character quirk. But I think Robert Downey Jr. and a lot of the other actors who were in the Avengers, every single one of them, bring their own character to it. And considering his work outside of the films, with children, with the audience, with the fans, this guy's just a good dude, man.
Well, what you just said there kind of sparked an interest, and we'd probably have to do some research. I mean, is he like the MCU character that's been, reprised so many times? I mean, you got to think about his number of movies with the Avengers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
he would probably most likely be. I guess Thor might time.
Well, no, Thor's not in Civil War.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, so he probably is the most, Robert Downey Jr.
Honestly, I think we would have to do some research, because maybe the Hulk.
That's true.
But Robert Downey Jr. playing the same MCU character, yes, because obviously 10 different people played the Hulk.
Yeah, Edward Norton and then
Eric Bana, Mark Ruffalo.
Yes.
What was his name? Bill Baxby or Bill Bixby?
Oh, back in the day? Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So there's been a lot of Bruce Banners out there.
Yes.
But Lou Ferrigno,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you had one side, you had Bruce Banner, of course, the Hulk, the Hulk,
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, anyways, Robert Downey Jr., super great guy. I think he makes Tony Stark so much more than Tony Stark was in the comic.
Yeah.
I always liked Iron Man, but this guy makes you love Tony Stark, So, bully on him. Anyways, getting back to our kind of rating system. So, May 2nd, 2008, Iron Man 1 came out. Rotten Tomatoes still holds it at a 94%. What do you think of the movie?
Man, Iron Man 1 is awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I rewatched it maybe like 6 months ago, and like it hasn't aged. I mean, I just think it is. It's a great superhero film. I mean, I know we've been singing praises the whole night, but like, yeah, like I mean, it's hard to beat Avengers, the first Avengers, but Iron Man 1. If you're going to talk about single, movie superheroes, it's just awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I very much wanted to see a lot of what happened in Iron Man 1, story and character progression-wise, kind of happened in Black Panther, and I don't feel like it really did.
I could agree with that. Just the whole package. Like when you left, you were like, like where's it going to go next? Like you said, Black Panther leaves a lot open, being that, it's so far along with the whole, and we know he's going to be in, Infinity War. So, we'll see where that goes.
Yes.
But yes, for a standalone movie, it's hard to beat this guy because you know what? At this time, they didn't know there was going to be a full-on universe, so they really put it in there, and it turned out really great. So, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's move on. Iron Man 2 came out May 7th, 2010, just 2 years later. Rotten Tomatoes holds it at a 73, which I think is fair because there is a lot of kind of repetitiveness to that movie.
Probably my biggest complaint would be that, it's so similar to the first. Like I said, it has, like I said, even just tonight, gained some more respect from me just because how much it does attribute from the comics.
Sure.
That it takes it in and puts that to screen. Points definitely there. But just besides bringing in War Machine, I thought, the whole villain wasn't that great.
Yeah, I wish we could have seen more of Whiplash. I don't know if that's because they just don't want to deal with Mickey Rourke or like what's going on. But Whiplash is really a character that to me was iconic for Iron Man books when I read them.
Sure, and I mean I know the Crimson Dynamo is like
Yeah.
an important character, but kind of meshing them together. And
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it just.
I mean, it was cool to have Justin Hammer's sort of story, but you almost wish that was its own story.
Well, that's right. I mean, has he? I don't know. Maybe in the Shield, does he come back or do any? Has he made any more of an impact or?
All like in Agents of Shield, a lot of times you'll see like enemy gear as Hammer tech.
Okay.
But that's all you see. Like now, Sam Rockwell's not hanging around or anything. It'd be nice, but no.
Yeah, I'd like to see him come back.
Yeah, definitely. So a 73 is probably fair for Iron Man 2, although there's a lot of really great nods to the comics in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you said, the briefcase, when he pulls the briefcase on.
The racing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The racing. Hogan comes out to save him.
Yes.
So I didn't even realize that was from the original comic.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that was really cool. Black Widow showing up is great. ScarJo. Right. So a lot of good stuff in here. Don Cheadle kind of replacing Terrence Howard. I feel bad. I don't mean to knock Terrence Howard, but Don Cheadle's like amazing.
He's awesome.
So yeah, a lot's going on in that movie, but it's almost too much.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3.
I have to say, like, when I saw Iron Man 3, I was like, this is great, It's a newer story, kind of, it doesn't do a lot of the repetitive stuff that I felt the second one did. Was very disappointed in how it handled the Mandarin. But then, like, when, they brought in the other guy and he's like, I am the Mandarin, or, he has all the powers and stuff like that. I was like, I kind of see where they're going. But it was a cool, I don't want to say the end to Iron Man's trilogy because I don't know, maybe there's going to be a fourth Iron Man, but it was a nice wrap to the story that began in the first one. And then,
it was a great character arc for Tony Stark himself. And I think a lot of the dealing with PTSD from what happened in New York, from the missile, from almost dying, from falling out of the sky, from his first time ever really being in a war.
Yeah.
That his reaction to it, and again, kind of bolstering, Robert Downey Jr., his portrayal of that was excellent. All the screenwriters, everyone who did work on that and everything that went into it, it really came off really great. On Rotten Tomatoes, they rate this as an 80, and I feel like they're cheating this movie. I feel like this was a lot better than an 80 personally.
I just think, like you said, like those Phase 1 movies, they kind of, besides Iron Man 2, but, like a lot of those other ones had really high marks, and it was because it was so new. And I think as people kind of got deeper and deeper into these, they were like looking for other things.
Yeah.
But I thought, like you said, compared to Iron Man 2, I agree. This should definitely be in the high 80s. I think. Like, I don't know if it's a 90.
Yeah. But I'd say 87-ish. I think would really be pretty fair for this movie because there's a lot of it that's excellent.
It is,
and really good and really fun. My only complaint about it again is like maybe it was a little long in parts, but when you think back on the movie, you can just name through scenes that were fun and exciting.
Oh, yeah.
The end part, the skydiving part, the part where he's handcuffed to a bed. There's you can just go on and on about fun scenes in this movie that you enjoy. Calling out the Mandarin the first time in front of his house getting blowed up. There's just all these epic moments that I'm like, not like every beat of this movie was great. So
Pepper as it could be a thing to her becoming rescue eventually.
So, absolutely. Her comic book persona kind of coming to light. But moving on from those three films, we've got Age of Ultron, which I think is a pretty big critical thing for Tony Stark and the advancement of Iron Man himself and his character again, because this is the first time we really see that what they told him in the Avengers, that sometimes there was going to be a sacrifice play, and he does that at the end. He sacrifices himself, but he skates out by the skin of his teeth. But now he's really in that mode of like, I need to do something to protect the world when I'm gone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he's working towards with the AI and advancing Jarvis and making Vision and all this sort of stuff that comes out in the movie. What ultimately becomes Ultron, which is a bad thing, and then he has to stop it, and then it becomes what addles him with guilt in Civil War and all this different, like the complexity that he goes through as a character, I think is phenomenal in this movie.
Oh yeah, and definitely even like when the whole after Ultron lays pretty much Avengers Tower, he goes and he opens up the new facility and stuff, so I mean, like you said, you definitely can see that he's trying to pave the way for safety, because just like we know with all the other comic book movies, whenever you get these superheroes, you get super villains too. So.
Yeah, because I would very much say that like I wouldn't give him a very high Avengers score in like Iron Man, because is he really helping many people besides himself through most of the movie? I mean, he does go back to Afghanistan, take his weapons out, stuff like that. He does a lot of good, but it's all for selfish reasons. He's doing that because that's his tech. He needs to get out of the hands of bad people.
Sure.
So while it's an altruistic action, what is really his motivation? That's what kind of I attribute the Avengers score to. That's why we said Captain America would be like 10 easy, because he's like the goodest person,
Absolutely.
But Tony Stark, they don't even want him as an Avenger. Remember, like in Iron Man 2, they're like, you're narcissistic. You don't play well with others.
Yeah, they reject them.
Yeah. So this movie, I think, really starts to turn the tide of Tony Stark being that philanthropist of real altruism, And I think it nothing says that more than building something to destroy a friend of yours. And he has such great respect for Bruce Banner, and he thinks the Hulk is so intriguing, but he definitely builds this machine to control it. He starts what's that business he has where they clean up after the Hulk?
Damage control.
Yes, damage control. He starts that in this movie. He has Veronica shoot down the thing to try to contain the Hulk. He's doing what he can, not only to save and help his friend, but to help and save people and clean up after the mistakes that they make. So it's really showing a lot of character development to me and him in that sense.
Absolutely, man. Like you said, just as... like you said, eventually he does have his Hulkbuster armor here, which is awesome. And it's just, it's just like he's, like you said, even though it's almost like Batman's thing where he's like, I need to know how to defeat all of you guys, so it's like, he made this specifically if he had to fight someone like the Hulk or the Hulk himself.
Yeah.
So, yep, absolutely, man. Very cool.
So this moment here in Spider-Man Homecoming, again, is a great kind of character development for Tony Stark to me, where you remember Spider-Man's yelling at the suit,
Yeah.
and he's like, I know you're just an empty suit. If you really cared, you'd be here. And what happens?
Yeah, he was there. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
He jumps right out of his suit. The whole audience is kind of caught off guard. You're like, dude, that was great. But again, this is a young kid. He wasn't going to leave him out there when some serious stuff was going down. You know, he came to help him. And Spider-Man Homecoming really illustrates how far Tony Stark has come in the sense that he's recruiting new people. He's training them. He's giving them tools like the tools that he has. He's trusting other people to use his tech and his weapons and things like that. And he's teaching them how to be responsible with it. So he really is developing into the head of the Avengers, you know?
Absolutely, man. No, like you said, this is a very awesome scene, and definitely just kind of goes to show like he is taking that more mature role.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. See the character development.
And then just a quick shout out to the Incredible Hulk end cutscene where he comes up to talk to General Ross. I always thought this was just such a cool scene. Not a lot of people catch it because not a lot of people, I think, really pay attention to the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah. It almost doesn't, because of Edward Norton, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the mythos or whatever. Yeah. But it's the same actor that plays General Ross. You know, he's sitting there at the bar, but he comes back in Age of Ultron and stuff. But even here, you can see that Tony is like, hey. He came to General Ross to be like, I heard you got a Hulk problem, man.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So from the get-go, it's kind of like, does he want this because he thinks the Hulk is like a cool toy? Or
yeah. Like, where does it fit?
Yeah, or is he trying to help? So I think ultimately it's that sort of back and forth mentality of, is he doing all this stuff for himself to leave a legacy or to really do right by mankind? And I see that a pattern of us steadily leaning towards he's doing right by mankind. How do you feel?
Well, one thing I would definitely say from the scene, I agree with you. You know, he's versus like his little Playboy toys. He's like, I want to do good.
Yeah.
You know, but also in the scene, the first movie, the end scene, you never got an answer.
Yeah.
It was pretty much just Sam, Nick Fury saying, hey, I'm going to start up the Avengers, or we're going to start the Avenger Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And it just cuts to black. Like here, it's like it's confirmed that Tony's interested.
Yes.
It was really like, hey, it was like the next step. He goes to Ross and he's like, hey, you got a problem. We're putting a team together. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It definitely got us jazzed for what we now had to wait, or at that time had to wait like another year and a half before the next movie came out. So yeah, now we're getting 3 a year. So it's
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I will say that his kind of narcissism that he's getting away from, his sort of don't hand me things attitude, is going to shave a couple points off his overall Avenger score. But I think ultimately we can settle at an 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just. It's where it began.
Yeah.
If anything does happen to Stark, like where he can't be Iron Man or he's just no longer in the movies, it's going to be a weird time after that because he really is the progenitor of that, of the Avengers. I mean, of the whole MCU.
All right, well, let's move on to my score, El Bandito's score. Let's see, what do I think of Iron Man? I'm going to give him a 10. I love this dude. The 2008 movie rocked me. I loved it. Everything he's in since. Robert Downey Jr., amazing. I always liked Iron Man in comics, but he wasn't my favorite. To me, he was just kind of a B-list character. But his portrayal on screen, the MCU, he's like your go-to guy. I think his popularity is on point for how cool, interesting, fun, and exciting of a character he is. 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, man. Well, I definitely agree with those, why you gave him that score, man. But I'm going to have to share my score right here.
All right, let's see what Charboil.
All right, here we go. Oh, oh, man. I know it's a little lower than what El Bandito gave him, but just give me a second. The thing is like, I know we were talking about like what we rated Captain America at last month, which I gave Captain America an 8. And as you can see here, I gave Iron Man a 7. So I definitely do like Cap more as a character, but Iron Man is very important to the movies. Like we said, he was the first MCU movie, so it definitely it has that importance. And like with all the stuff we've talked about tonight, it's just that there's certain things, like I said, Iron Man 2 has never really been my favorite movie, and just certain things where I've always felt like he was a little further pushed than where he belonged. But I can't deny that Iron Man is a very important Avenger. His movies, like you said, without Iron Man happening, we wouldn't have what we have today. So I'm very grateful for it. But yeah, I'm gonna go with giving him a total score of a 7. You guys will have to find out in a future episode who is my favorite Avenger.
Absolutely, guys. But now's the time when we need your help, right? All right, it's been a long time coming, but we need your help. And take your time. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But whenever you get around to it, drop a comment down here and let us know that you love Iron Man, right? Now, this counts as one additional point for Iron Man. We'll add up the total of all the points we've given him tonight. We'll compare it across all the other Avengers. You're allowed to vote for more than one. You're allowed to vote multiple times. If you want to say you love Iron Man 100 times, say you love Iron Man 100 times in the comments. We would love that, dude. You can comment either here or on our YouTube page. We're going to tabulate all of those responses together. If you want to, shoot over and give Cap some love on our other page, or if you want to just give Cap some love here, you could do that. Throw him a vote. But yes, definitely like, share, vote, subscribe. Let us know what's going on, man, and show some love for Iron Man. We're going to, right?
Oh, you know it, man. Yeah, like Al Bandito said, man, go on there and you guys throw it in. We know tonight was an extra long show, but we had so much stuff to cover: the history, the comics, the past of the MCU, the future.
Yes.
Man, there's just so much stuff. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. Like you said, throw in the comments who's your favorite. We'll add up all those, and then yeah, man, we'll see at the end who is the ultimate Avenger.
Absolutely, guys. Like we told you earlier, head over to our YouTube page, subscribe over there. You'll be entered for a chance to win in our raffle a copy of Thor Ragnarok on Blu-ray when it's released March 6th. We're doing our drawing here on the show on March 5th. Join us next week, 9 p.m., Monday night, and we'll be here with some awesome... What are we covering next week?
Oh, man. We're jumping into Convention Mania.
Oh, that's right, man. We have got all sorts of conventions happening all over Florida and all over the rest of the country. It's the springtime. People are getting out there and showing some love, and we want to let you know where you can go out and find some of the coolest and hottest stuff out there. So, like we said, join us next week for that. Otherwise, we'll see you guys out there.
Yeah.